Hello guys, welcome back to this channel and thanks for viewing this video. Today we are going to continue our discussions on Layout Manager. The last video we talked about Grid Layout Manager. In this video particularly, we are going to talk about the Border Layout Manager, which is the default layout manager for the frame. So let me just remove all this portion of code like this and then delete that. All right, as for the setup of my program, here I'm having, this is my main class, and then this is the main method. These lines of code are used to create the frame. I think you already know JFrame, frame new JFrame. I'm trying to manipulate the attributes of the frame, like the size and then the position and then setting the frame visible. We could also use the inheritance mechanism by adding a second class and making sure that that second class would inherit from the properties and the methods from the JFrame class and then define all the properties of that particular frame in that second class. But in this video, to keep things simple, this is how we're gonna work here. So that's it concerning the introduction. But so now if you want to set a layout for your particular frame, you use the set layout method. But we already know that the frame here uses the default layout manager, which is the border layout. And that's the border layout that we're going to be talking about in this video. But just for you to see how to set a layout, I'm going to say frame that set layout. And in here, I'm going to define the layout that I want to set. So that is going to be border layout. So as I said, border layout is the default layout for the frame. So whether I set it or not, we will still get the border layout applying to the frame. Okay. So how does this border layout work? So first of all, let us create some few things here. I am going to create a button. So I'm going to say J button, btn, new J button. Semicolon. I'm going to set the text of this button. I'll say button 1. I can create 2 buttons. Okay, next thing, I need to change this to button 2. I have to add these buttons to the frame. So I'll say add btn, semicolon, and frame that add btn2, and then semicolon. Oh, there's a typo here. So I have to say frame like this. So it has been added. Now when I run, you can see that only button 1 is showing on the frame because it has overlapped on button 2. So like if I change the sequence here, I say that the first button I added is button 2 and then run. I need to change here to button 2 and see, okay, button 1 is showing because button 1 is the last element I added to the frame. So let me change here. If I say that button 2 is the last item I added to the frame and run, now you see button 2 is showing and button 1 is actually behind button 2. So we can't see it. So now with border layout, we have the possibility of placing components in up to 5 areas of the container. You can place it at the top, at the bottom, at left, right, and at the center. Okay, so when you place your elements at the top, at right, left side, all extra space is placed in the center of the container. So all the 5 areas, the top, bottom, left, right, and center, can be specified by the border layout constants. So we are going to take an example where we are going to add components to our frame. We are also going to apply border layout constants to align them at various areas of the container. So let's add some more buttons here. Okay, we add 3 more buttons. So we say 1, 2, 3. So here we will say button 3, button 4, and button 5. So now when adding the buttons to the frame, we can also specify the position or the area where this particular button that we are adding should be placed. Let's say, for example, the first line of code here, we're adding the first button to our frame. We can say, okay, that we want it to be placed at the start of the frame. So we will say border layout. So this is going to be another parameter, and we will say border layout that page underscore start. Now let me comment this. Let's see what will happen if I run this. So when you do that, when you say page start, so it starts at the top. All right. So you can see the button is at the top here. So let's say that for button 2, we will say border layout that page end. So when you say page end, where will it start? It will start at the bottom of the frame. Button 1 is at the top and button 2 is at the bottom of the frame. We can also say, okay, let's add a third button here. That will be button 3, and we'll say border layout that line all caps line start, and then let us put the semicolon. So let's run. So line start here, it is placed on the left side. Okay, as you can see on the left, we are having button 3, and we will say frame add button 4, and then border layout that line underscore end, and then a semicolon. This is actually going to place it on the right side. So that's basically it. So you can also try to manipulate, the size of these various components. Okay. But before I do that, let me just add the other button. So I'll say button 5. So as for button 5, we are not going to specify the area where it's going to be placed. But by default, as I said, all the extra, space would be placed at the center. And now if I put button 5 here without specifying the border layout constant, run, you'll see that button 5 is placed at the center of the frame, just like I said. Why? Because we didn't specify the constant to determine where it should be placed. Okay, so as I was saying, we can also actually work on the size of the elements that we place on the frame. Let's say that the first button, we want to actually set size. So how we can do that, we can use a method called set preferred size. So we will simply say button that set preferred size, new dimension, and here we can set the size of this particular button. So let's import the class called dimension here. Now, if I run, you can see now the size of button 1 has changed. Okay, we can also do that for button 2 as well. Let me simply copy and paste it here for button 2. So here I'll say button 2. If I run, you can see how button 2 has also changed. All right. So that's it on how you can play around this border layout manager. So as I was saying, by default, the frame uses the border layout manager. I just want to show you that here. Let me comment this. So this is going to make sure that, okay, this line of code is not going to be taken into account when I run my program. But when I run, you can notice that nothing has actually changed because by default, my frame uses the border layout manager. Okay, so I put this line of code just to show you how to set the layout and all of that. So let's also maybe work on some other things. We can actually set some gaps, horizontal and vertical gaps, by adding some parameters in our border layout constructor here. We will say 25 like this, and let me run. Now you can see that we are having some gap between our components. So it has added vertical and horizontal gaps to the components placed on our particular frame. All right, so let's take another example where we are going to add some panels to our frame and then simply work around that to see how this actually works. All right, so let me simply remove all these codes and I'm going to add some panels. So I'll say panel 1 is equal to new jpanel, and I'm going to copy and paste. I need 5 panels. So this is going to be panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, and panel 5. So as I said, I can work on these panels. For example, I can define the background color for the panels. So as for panel 1, I can say set background, okay, color that this one I'll say blue. I can also set the size of this particular panel. I'll simply say set preferred size here to be 100 for the width and 100 for the height. Okay, I need to say new dimension like this, and I'm gonna close the bracket. Okay, so that's for panel 1. For the other panels, I will only put the background colors. Okay, Okay, so here I would say panel 2, its background color would be green. Panel 3, the background color would be yellow. Panel 4, the background color would be red. And then panel 5, I will give a different color. So after I have done that, I need to add these panels to my frame. So I will simply say panel like this. Now it's panel 1, and I'm gonna copy and paste. So this will be panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, panel 5. So I have added the panels on the frame. So as you know, if I add like this, they are going to overlap on each other. So the panel 5 is going to occupy the whole space and overlap over the other panels. So I need to set the constants that will determine their alignment. So for panel 1, I will say that I want it to be our border layout that line start like this. When I run, you will see that's where it is. I will say border layout line underscore end. Let me run. Okay, this is how it's showing. I can say here border layout page underscore start, and this one that will be border page underscore end. Now run. Okay, so for the last one, I don't need to put the border layout constant, but let me just put it here. I'll say center like this. So if I run, nothing has changed because it was centered as already. So you can also see that we are having some gaps because we specified the gaps here. Let me remove the gap, and when I run, there's an error. I need to remove one bracket. Okay, when I run, so now you can see how this is showing. So I actually need to set the sizes, the preferred size for my panels as well. So I will simply copy this, paste it for panel 2. For panel 3, I will do the same thing. Okay, so for panel 4 as well, and for panel 5. So I will simply change here panel 4 and panel 5 here. So that's it. So now when I run, so all the 4 panels are going to have different same sizes. And as you can see, when I resize the frame, okay, it's kind of responsive. The size of the panels are also decreasing. So when I resize like this is what happens. And I decrease, increase. So this is also possible because the frame is resizable, okay? So that's why it's been able to be resized. I can also use some other border layout constants, okay? So instead of saying line start here, I can say border layout that north, for example. If I say north, let me remove all of this so that we will be able to see what has happened. So I'm going to remove that. So when I say north, now north is just like I was saying page start, okay? It's going to place it at the top. What if I say here border layout that south? South is going to be at the bottom, all right? I can also say border layout east like this. It's going to be on the right. So that's the east. So you can just imagine that the next one would be border layout west. Okay, west will be the left side. And then we can say border layout that center. Center would be the middle. Okay, so that's it. And one thing we can also note is that each panel can have its own layout manager. So that means that you can actually set the border layout manager to a particular panel. So let's say, for example, our panel 5, we can set its layout manager to be border layout. So I'll simply come here and say panel 5.set layout, new border layout like this. Okay, so that's it. And we can add some more panels that will be added to this particular panel. So we can add 5 more panels. So I will copy this, paste it here. I will simply change this. I will say panel 6, panel 7, panel 8, panel 9, panel 10. All right. So I can also set the colors for these panels. So what I would do is simply copy this, come down here. I'm going to paste it like this. So here would be panel 6, 6 as well, panel 7, panel 7, panel 8, panel 8, panel 9, panel 9, and then panel 10. Last will be panel 10. All right, so what I can do, let me just copy this. I will copy this and come and paste it here, okay? So now I can add these panels, so from panel 6 to panel 10 to our panel 5. How do you do that? So you write panel 5 that add panel 6, and then you can determine the border layout constant. That will be border layout that north, like this. So let's see how this is going to look like. When you run, you can see that here we are having panel 6 showing. Just in case, because panel 6 is also having the color blue, let me just change that. Let me say that its color is green, for example. So you see that we're having a green color here, or let's say orange. So you can see that the color orange is showing there. Or one thing we can do, instead of saying color like this, we can actually use some hexadecimal. So I'm using some RGB code here to define the color. Yeah, so that's how it's showing now. I'm simply gonna copy this RGB for all the other background colors, and this I'm gonna change that for this one as well. Okay, so I'm gonna change this and the last one as well. I will continue adding these panels to my panel 5. So I'll copy and paste. So here I will say panel 7, border layout, the constant will be border layout that's south. And for panel 8 here, the border layout will be east. For panel 9, I'll say border layout that's west. And for panel 10, the border layout will be the center. But as for the center, I can choose not to put that. Okay, so now when I run, see what will happen. Okay, there's a mistake in the color here. I made a mistake. I should put 2 here. Now when I run, there you can see the various colors showing here. All right, so that's it. You can also set the border layout as the layout manager for your panel, and that's how you do that. So let me set the size for border layout 5 here. If I decrease its preferred size, say 50, and then run, it's still showing the same as for these ones as well. Let me increase the sizes, and then if I run, okay, now this is how it's showing. So you can just play around increasing and decreasing the sizes of these panels and just see how different it will look. So that's it for these particular ones. I can say 150 here, 150 as well, 150, 150, and 150. Now when I run, this is how my frame is looking like. So we are having a bunch of panels on this particular frame. And what you can do is maybe you can choose to add some text to these particular panels. So we are going to add some labels. So I'm going to say label, JLabel, label, new JLabel. And in the label, I can set some text, say label or my label. All right, so here you can choose to say, I want to add this particular label to my panel. So I will say panel 6 that add a label. Now, if you run, you can see that the label has been added, okay? So you can actually do that for all these panels. Simply copy this just to show you. If you do that for label 7, label 8, label 9, label 10, let us add other labels. So this is going to be label 2, and then I will add label 2 here. This is going to be label 3. It's going to be label 4, label 5. So here I will say label 3 for label 4 and label 5. Now if you run, you can see all the labels added on the inner panels. You can also do the very same thing, add your label, your button, your GUI components on each of these panels, and it will work. You can also set the layout manager for each of these panels. So each panel can have a different layout manager. So the border layout is actually important when you want to have a frame, and on that frame you want to have different parts and you want to style them differently, you can structure your frame this way. On your left, you can have a side menu. At the top, you can have your menu with certain items. At the center, you can have the body, for example, of your frame where you're going to put some of your Google components and all of that. At the bottom, you can have a footer, for example, So that's how the border layout becomes handy and important. So that was it concerning the border layout and how you can use that on frames and panels, and also how you can add components and how the components are aligned and positioned on the container. So I hope this video was informative, and please don't forget to like, to share, and to also subscribe to this YouTube channel for more videos like this one. Let's meet in the next one.